Looks like we've got a full house here today. Ms. Burzak, Ms. Porter, Mr. Rice, Mr. Albert, Mr. Urick, Mr. Tufts, and Mr. Miller, and I'm Patsy Hartzell. First item on the agenda. We are back to approval of the special meeting minutes of Monday, November 18th, 2024. I did have some questions and staff agreed to take it back and see what they could come up with, and I'm assuming that the red line is what was the compromise, taking out that which is struck through, which was my concern, and replacing with this language, which is, my opinion, because I'm one that at least started with the objection, is better. I think it's more accurate in terms of where we left things that day. I don't know how everybody else feels, but that I can live with this compromise language. What do others think?
I agree. That more accurately reflects what I remember from that evening.
We had a pretty good representation at that meeting, so if that's matching up with others, then I think maybe that we've got staff hit some language that, okay. I'm just curious, did everybody have to go back through and revise and vote?
Yes, the city commission had to amend their minutes. This is what they approved last meeting on Monday, and the DBA had not yet approved them, so this is what they did.
Okay. All right. Anything else with regard to the minutes from November 18th, 2024? Any other additions or corrections? Now, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Everett. Do I have support for Mr. Everett's motion?
Support.
Mr. Miller, thank you, sir, for the discussion on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are adopted as changed. Thank you, council and staff for getting that done. I think that could make a difference one of these days. Next item on the agenda, the regular minutes from Thursday, January 2nd, 2025. Mr. Miller found one that I missed, and I think he's right. Just start on packet page 4, I think, under number 1, where it says, Mr. Miller stated, fifth paragraph from the top has typographical errors should be moved to approve. I think that was me, not Mr. Miller, and I agree with that. That probably should say my name. I recollect, I missed it, but I think I recollect it the same way. Are there other additions or corrections to the minutes? Ms. Burzak?
Page 13, paragraph 3, the last, the second to the last sentence. She believes the existing rules should remain for new construction, that she did visit a property within a non-conforming air conditioning unit. And then it says within 3 feet of the side building setback at the rear of the dwelling. It was not within, so I need the word not adding in front of within. And then I need it to say, but within 3 feet of the rear property line. So it was not within the 3-foot side yard setback, but it was within 3 foot of the rear property line setback.
Hey,
Thank you.
anything else?
So there's,
I'm sorry, Mr. Tufts, let's go with you.
Just packet page 14, third paragraph. Correct the spelling of Tefs to TEFS.
Yeah. I think we can do that. All right, Mr. Miller, you had one too.
so it looks like we had some, like something got copied and kind of pasted twice in here.
Yeah.
So it looks like kind of like the results box on packet page 11. I think that results box is probably supposed to be after the zoning change discussion.
It
on
reads like there
page-
were almost 2 separate hearings, and I don't think that's,
So I think that gray result box, and I'll let staff think about that, that would go to packet page 9. And then on packet page 11 from where the number 6 is through the end of the page, and then most of packet page 12, I think is a repeat, gets repeated.
Yeah.
Sorry, still trying to figure out where the other.
Okay, so
Yeah. It reads like there was almost two separate hearings and there were not, and that's,
so if you look on packet page, oh, I missed it.
well, here's the opening of the first time, the opening of the public hearing there.
Yeah, so
I see number 6 on packet page 11, public hearing for.
Yes.
Mhm.
that's it.
which is, yes, so
Yes.
you'll see that that's kind of in there twice.
I see where,
So it looks like most of packet page 11, most of packet page 12. There's,
It's a duplicate.
and then the results approved gray boxes need to be kind of just moved a little bit.
So the result gray box for the hearing on 101 Broad Street, I remember I was the mover. So, as you had said before, to move the result box from page 11 to which page?
That would go to packet page 9.
it's for 101 Broad Street. I'll fix
I think
it.
maybe,
Okay.
can
I
we
think-
bring this one back for March? Yeah, I think so. There's a
I think when
lot
staff
of-
looks at it, they'll be able to
Figure
put
it
it
out.
back in order.
Were there other corrections or additions besides, those are major, obviously, but were there others? All right, hearing none, then we defer on this till the next meeting and then send that back to us with those corrections. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, public hearing, text amendment to section 2.3, 3.93C and 21.7C. Zoning ordinance, mechanical equipment regulations, open public hearing. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've discussed and talked and reviewed and discussed and talked and reviewed. And we thank staff for their efforts. Got to our public hearing phase. Is there additional discussion before we open it up for public comment? Of course, we always do a public hearing, but start with members if there are any that would like to comment or discuss. All right, hearing none for now, we'll come back. Does anyone like to be heard? Then please step to the podium and tell us who you are and what you'd like us to consider, please.
My name is Jack Sanderson. I live at 804 Lake Lane. And I am the esteemed chairman of the Blow Bluff Neighborhood Association, which isn't much, but it's something, I guess. I have a number of things I'd like to talk to you about. And I'd kind of like to just start through maybe on packet page 20. And talk there about the factors to consider on rezonings. And one of the first things it says there is that the planning commission may solicit information from public agencies or individuals or firms with relevant experience. And I'm just curious, Kristen, did you or Trudy or Caleb have any comments with or any communications with any of our local HVAC contractors regarding this? Okay. Okay. Well, anyway, the first question is, what's changed since the zoning ordinance was adopted, which justify the proposed amendment? And the answer that was given there by Kristen in her application is the existing regulations requiring non-conforming mechanical equipment to be relocated in an allowed location have been in place since 2007. Since 2017, the regulations have been enforced. While many property owners have relocated non-conforming equipment, has been expressed requiring equipment to be relocated as expensive and not necessary. And I'd like to add something to that. And it actually occurs a year before, but it took effect really in 2007. And one of the things you perhaps hear about talking about air conditioning is SEER requirements. And that's SEER, and that stands for Seasonal Energy Efficiency Rating. And that's how an air conditioner is rated. You think of furnaces and you say, well, I've got a 100,000 BTU furnace. That's really the output of it. It doesn't have anything to do with efficiency. There is an efficiency rating for furnaces also, but it's almost never referred to. But an air conditioner, that's the only one you can say I have so many tons of air conditioning, which doesn't mean anything to anybody. Or you can say it has to be a certain SEER level. And it's important to take a look at that because you've heard a lot of comments about, well, if you buy an air conditioner now, it seems like they're larger than they used to be. And the answer is they are, and there's a reason for that. And the SEER requirement is the reason for it. There's a lot of things that government can change in their laws and so forth, but one of them isn't the laws of thermodynamics. In other words, a air conditioner condenser coil is all about heat transfer. We are taking heat energy out of the house and we're releasing it outside. And so that's thermodynamics. And unless you come up with better materials, a different kind of air to move other than atmospheric air that we have, it's going to happen the same way in everyone. You can make coils thinner and bigger and so forth, and that will transfer more heat as air goes past the hot coils that are coming out of the house. It will transfer more heat. But unless you make the whole thing bigger and have more coils and more fan space and so forth, you will not be able to be more efficient. You're trying to get more heat transferred from inside to outside with the same amount of electrical energy, which is used to run the compressor that moves the refrigerant through the system. And so you can go back and say, every time they change that SEER requirement, air conditioners are going to have to change also, unless we get some kind of a coolant that works better, and there is movement to do that. Some of them do work a little bit better, or unless we get better materials with better heat transfer characteristics, it's always going to get bigger. So I want to pass something out here. This is from the Department of Energy, and it's a graph. You don't have to do math, but you have to look at graphs. Oops. You got a couple of them there. Take one's home, make it out.
I'll share.
Okay, just a little word about on the right-hand side, first of all. That is heat efficiency requirement for heating equipment, which is called an HSPF. You can't really say that one. We don't care about that one. What we do care about is the one on the left. And the little graph there on the left-hand side of it has the numbers running up the column from 0 to 20, and that is a SEER rating, how efficient that is. And an air conditioner that's a 12 is much more efficient than an air conditioner which is rated as an 8, for instance. Okay. Then down across the bottom we have dates starting in 1992. In 92, something happened there, and that's when we first started really seriously looking at the air conditioner ratings. And at that time, they rated from 8 to 9, something like that. And that was the range of them. And in 1992, they moved it to 10. 2006 is what we're really kind of looking at here. They moved it to 13. So now we have air conditioners that are far more efficient than the ones we first started out with. And so if you look at the little blue line that goes horizontally and has a little step in it there, that indicate what's the SEER level was from 92 to 2006 is when it changed. And then it jumped up a little bit to 13, and then it stayed at that until 2023. We just changed again a couple of years ago, and we jumped up a little bit higher than that. Now we're up to 14. And it's interesting because you can go back and look at in 2006, when they changed from 10 to 14, air conditioners grew in size. Air conditioners, the portion of what's outside of your house, grew in size from 120 to 150%. So in other words, one that was 24 inches square before is now 33 to 36 inches. That's about how much. Or instead, they could keep them at 24 inches and make them taller. You could make them bigger that way. A few manufacturers did, but most didn't, because a 24-inch tower standing that high is a little floppy and might fall over. So they made them a little broader in the base. So that's what happened. And that's really what's driving the changes in the ordinance. But it is interesting to also look at that graph, and that shows from 2007 when those units would have been bigger. In 2006, they changed it, but they allowed manufacturers to continue using the stock that they had on hand until 2007. So 2007, anything bought after 2007 is going to be bigger. You can just count it. Maybe the same size, you got same size house, nothing else has changed, but your air conditioner unit will be bigger. And then the other line that's vertical in there, I've kind of added some numbers down at the bottom. 2017 is when St. Joe first began to enforce the ordinance that we're concerned with now. And that ordinance is such that if there is something wrong with it, you couldn't fix it necessarily. If you need to replace it, if it was bigger, came within 3 feet of the side yard, you had to put it in the backyard, or maybe you just had to put it there altogether. One or the other. Could be, depends on how you read it. So anyway, the first thing to think about, and I'm sorry Jeremy isn't here. I thought maybe he was going to be here tonight from the fire department. And that is, what was our results in the city here? We went for 10 years under the old ordinance, without enforcement of the new ordinance. And I haven't noticed the city particularly, going to hell or having all these fires or so forth, which we were first threatened with, that was what's going to happen. In 10 years, I can't find any indication of anything that's happened in this city that is related to those. So you need to think about that when you say, okay, do we need to have this or not? And the answer is, so far, it hasn't made any difference. That's for sure. So we've gone for 10 years. A lot of times you don't know what's going to happen when you change an ordinance because, it changes and then whatever happens is what happens. You don't know what would have happened if it hadn't changed or if it's changed differently. Now we know. We've tested this ordinance. We've tested it and said, do we need to move things when they get bigger, when they're closer to sidelines? And the answer is, so far, we sure haven't seen any evidence of that. So, and it's interesting. Trudy isn't here, but what she said during our second go around here, when she talked about in 2017, we started enforcing that ordinance. And she said, well, what happened was a previous inspector had retired, and then for a while we used the state to inspect them. And then in 2017, we started doing that. And she said that the reason that the previous inspector had not enforced it is because he thought it wasn't a big deal. So we have no results that indicate something bad happened. We have Trudy quoting the previous state inspector as saying he didn't think it was a big deal, but now we're trying to reinstate it. So let's keep that in mind and move on a little farther. To packet page 21. There's a comment that needs to be expanded on a little bit there, I think. And that is section G. Is there another procedure such as a variance, special use plan, unit development, hardship plan, unit development, or more appropriate alternative to the proposed amendment? And the answer that Kristen gave there, nothing wrong with, the dimensional variance process could be used. However, in situations of equipment failure, the variance process would likely delay the installation of equipment. Think about that for a second. Supposing that you had your air conditioner fail, and it's not going to fail tomorrow or today because it's not running today. When's it going to run? It's going to run when the temperature in your house gets over whatever you have the temperature set for. That's 78, 75, 70, 69, who knows what you might have it set for. But until it gets over that temperature in your house, it's not going to run, which means it's probably not going to run until sometime in the summer. So say that, we have a cool spring and it doesn't kick on until July, which is not terribly uncommon. A lot of people said air conditioners don't use much until July. If it happens after, how many days do we have to have notice for the ZBA? Kristen?
4 days first.
24 days before the meeting? Okay, so the meeting is in July would be the second week. So we're not going to get notice for that. We're not going to get notice until August to be on the board then. So you're going to be without air conditioning for the hottest part of the summer. Not uncommon at all for that to happen. Very few people, according to the HV contractors, and I've talked to 7 of them now, very few people replace theirs before they need to. They're expensive, cost a lot of money. Everybody hopes they'll last forever. They won't, but everybody hopes they will. So they don't even think about it until they don't work. And that's human nature, I guess. So using the variance process to say this, you say, well, I want to put my air conditioner here. And we say, oh, the ordinance says that's too big. You can't put it there. Yeah, and you may have a lot of valid reasons for not putting it someplace else. It may not work someplace else, which is one of the reasons I was hoping that maybe that our building department went and talked to some of the HVAC contractors, because that's not just me saying it, that's them saying it. You put it far enough away, first of all, the efficiency goes down, which is the reason why you have to buy a bigger one to start with to get the efficiency up. Now it's going to go down. If you move it far enough, it may not cool your home. So that's kind of undesirable. So let's say that we do that anyway. We're gonna appeal this. I want it there. It's the only place I can put it. I'm gonna appeal it there. So I'm gonna take it to the ZBA, and if I have to live and sweat for 45 days to get on the docket and be heard by them, what are they gonna say? Sean, you know better than anybody. There's 9 things that you have to meet there. And I've looked at it and I'm thinking, I don't think you could count on the ZBA saying, yeah, we'll give you a variance for that. So then what do? Then you may end up with a system that doesn't work, or if nothing else, it's going to cost you a heck of a lot more money. We have one here in St. Joe that the estimate for, and this is a written estimate for repairing it, was $13,000. And the end cost for repairing it, replacing it with a new unit out in the backyard, was $26,000. That's a lot of money. Now, you think of this maybe as my area. We're below the bluff down there, and we got some pretty affluent people down there. But according to my count, in the various zones in St. Joe, there are over 300 33-foot lots, many of which are down below the bluff, many of which are within a stone's throw out the back of the city commission building here. And so we're talking about probably the most affluent and maybe the least affluent neighborhoods in St. Joe are the ones that are affected directly by this. And so not everybody's going to be able to pay that $13,000. I know that there are 2 in question on this very block, which contractors are dealing with right now. And one of them scratching his head and says, I don't know where the hell we're going to put the thing. There's no place that fits. The only way you're going to be able to do it is get the ZBA to approve it. So anyway, that's kind of the problem with it. Let's go on a little bit farther here and go to packet page 23, and let's look at the proposals that have been submitted to you. And if we look at section 2.3, the definitions, there is one of the things I'd suggest there. In mini splits are kind of a nickname for a device. You've heard those talked about a little bit. Does anybody know what a mini split is? It's a heat pump. Absolutely, it's a heat pump. And how is it different from an air conditioner we have right now? What's missing is a word in there that's part of the title for those things. And they are a ductless heat pump. In other words, I would bet that everybody here heats their house with central heating of some sort. And you've got registers around your rooms throughout your house, and air is pumped from your furnace, which may be in the basement or maybe in the attic, wherever it is. It's pumped all over your house. That is a ducted system. And air conditioning that you have works with that in all likelihood. And it is ducted also, so it comes all over the place. A mini split ductless system is not like that really at all. It works the same way. You got an outside unit, you got an inside unit, which is the same as a window air conditioner. Window air conditioner has an inside unit and an outside unit. It's just split in the middle by the window. But the mini split is basically a little condenser that's outside, maybe hanging on the outside of your house, maybe on the ground outside your house. And immediately inside of that, typically, they want it as close as you can, is a little register that runs along your wall. And it kind of looks a little smaller than what you see in a motel room. You see in a motel room, you see you got a little box over there that's underneath the window. And you can control it. You never can figure out how to make it work because they have really tricky controls on them that are automatic and so forth. Most of the controls for them are actually placebos and they don't do anything. But you have a little unit like that in not just one room, but you're probably going to have them in many rooms. In other words, one is not going to do this. And people aren't going to like that because you don't like to put your furniture in front of them and they're big, long things. So they're not very desirable. Yes, the unit that's outside is typically smaller, but it doesn't do the same thing. You can't get the same thing out of a small one as you got out of a big one. So it's important to realize that. And so my point with that is we say a mini split, that really isn't a term as such. If you want to call it by that, it is a ductless heat pump is the actual term for it. So if you want the terminology to be right, that's what you should do. So we move down to number 3.9.3. And that is mechanical structures and where they can be relocated. They'd only be relocated in rear yards or side yards and maybe within the rear or side yard setbacks if located at least 3 feet from rear and side lot lines. Okay, we need to talk about that 3 feet because the 3 feet has really gotten to be kind of a bugaboo here. We've started out with that and we need to follow that path through here. So at our first meeting, the reasons that we were given by the building department, zoning department, is that we need to provide sufficient space to allow for routine maintenance. Well, that's all well and good. But under Michigan code, every one of those things has to be installed in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions. And they all give instructions on how they have to be installed. And they're all a little bit different. So there's no point in even doing that. That's a given because we've already got that instruction. Please allow access to the rear of the property by others in case of emergency. That's kind of an interesting one because we've kind of got hung up on that a little bit, but we'll touch it a little bit here and then we'll touch it a little bit later on. First of all, we have to realize we can have a 6.5 foot high fence that cuts off the backyard. Now, we just had a fire in St. Joe on South State Street and big fire over there. And I'm sure that, if you're like everybody else, everybody drives past the fire and see what's going on there. And if you did, you probably looked through there. First of all, you notice there was no air conditioner condenser outside of that house. There was in the house next door, but there wasn't on this one. And the one next door wasn't 3 feet off the property line, doesn't look like. But there was a 6.5 foot high fence. Now, if you saw the pictures in the paper, you see the fire department staying out there, spraying hose on it from out in the front yard. And there's a reason for that. Modern day firefighting is done from inside the house if you possibly can. You go inside and put the fire out there. That's how every fire department does it. So you see fire departments with big tanks on their back, look like scuba tanks, and they are air tanks. Allows them to go inside the house. But when it gets to the point it's too big and you can't get at it, The fallback method is what's called surround and drowned. That's what the fire departments refer to it as. We get a whole bunch of people out there, and we punch enough water on that, we hope we put it out. That's not the way to fight fires. And so realistically, you almost never need to go around a building to fight the fire for the fire department. And, you know, you may scoff at that, but I've interviewed about 2,000 firefighters and what they did at course of fires. And that's actually a very rare thing to have happen. If you are going to rescue somebody, you're probably going to rescue them from a second floor or higher. Doesn't very often happen in the first floor. First floor, there's a fire. Most people will jump regardless of how high that window is. If you have to get to the second floor, you have to put the ladder up at an angle. And if we got 5 foot from there and you're going to the second floor, that's not enough angle. That ladder may kick out on you. So, you know, what you're doing on your side of that property line really doesn't matter much. So that's kind of a hokey thing.
Yeah, we're all gonna die.
The other one, we're going to help to maintain the quality of life of adjacent properties. It escapes me how that happens. Yes, air conditioners make noise, but the nice thing is when they got bigger, what makes the noise? The fan and the air moving through it. The air is being forced through small packages or small openings. The more openings you have, the less noise it makes. So it is absolutely true that you get a new air conditioner, it's going to be less noisy. And, you know, I'm not sure, you know, how that makes changing those things makes much of a difference. I've lived with an air conditioner about 5 feet outside of my sliding glass bedroom window, which we open at night if we can, because we paid the money to live there on the lake and to listen to the waves. But you can't hear it when that air conditioner is on. And we lived with it for a lot of years, never was a big problem until it ran out of coolant. And it ran out of coolant, and for 3 years, the owner wouldn't get it fixed. It ran from the time it came on until the time somebody turned it down or it got cold enough in the house. It would run all summer. And that was a little irritating. I'll have to admit that. We got it fixed. So anyway, those are the things that we started out saying, these are the reasons why we have to have this. And those reasons are just hokey. They're not real in any way, shape, or form. And then they enlisted the fire department to come back and say, well, there's fire damage with that. And most of you were here when I passed out instructions for a whole raft of different air conditioner compressor units and pointed out that not a single one of them has a fire warning on it. They are neither a fire cause, nor are they a fuel for the fire. And you need them to be one of those things for its proximity to your house that cause a fire. And besides that, if you stop to think about it, it's really kind of dumb. That is, I've got a house, my neighbor's got a house. You want me to have this, I can't be within 3 feet of that, and supposedly he's someplace away from his property line. So I'm going to be at least 3 feet from his line, and then whatever he is on top of that. If he's another 5 feet, then I'm 8 feet away from it. Whatever. But where can I put it next to my house? I can attach it to my house if I want to. Or if you have to have some clearance, it's maybe 6 inches, and that's so air can get in it, so it'll work. So there's no danger to me. Why would there be a danger to him? You think the manufacturers would be allowed to sell it and attach it to your house or put it 6 inches for your house if it was going to catch on fire? And the answer is no, it wouldn't. And I also passed out an instruction installation sheet for a Whirlpool dryer. And they are fire causes. Whirlpools aren't particularly bad, but some of them really are. And in it, the first page you see is warnings about fire, because there are things that you need to do to avoid having fires. Okay, you see it there. You didn't see it in the other one. That's the point of it. So we went through that and said, this really isn't a fire cause. That's not a concern. So it's not a fire code compliance. There is no fire code that says that anywhere in the United States that I can find. And I do know a little bit about fire codes, and I can't find one that says that or anything like it. So the importance of 3 foot setback in multiple fire safety conditions was kind of cute. They said, well, in the fire code, it says you need to be 3 feet away from a fire hydrant. I'll buy that. That's kind of stupid. Why, what you don't want to have is cars and stuff parked all the way on fire hydrants, so you can't get to it because you need to get the water to put the fire out. But that doesn't have anything to do with fire cause, that's firefighting. And you have to be 3 feet clearance in front of your electrical panel. Yeah, you have to get there once in a while. Yeah, you need to reset breakers and things like that. Yeah, that makes sense, but it doesn't have anything to do with 3 feet clearance to combustibles outside of the house. Okay, and then all those first things we came through in the first meeting have gone away now, except for noise, ventilation, and manufacturer's guidelines. And I'm good with the guidelines because that's the code anyway. You have to do that. Noise, it's less now than it ever was. In ventilation, you release hot air, where does it go? Goes up. Don't believe that? Get a candle from your kid's birthday cake, light it, put your hand on top of it, and see how close you can get to without getting burned. And then notice that you can set the candle in your hand. You can even tilt it down to it's within about a half an inch of your hand. And it won't hurt your hand because heat rises. And what you're taking out of the house with a condenser unit is heat. When it goes out, it rises. Somebody said, oh, well, I don't want one of those horizontal ones blowing out on my house. You think it blows out like that and then hits the house and then goes up? It doesn't do that. It goes zip like that. And you can actually, if you really need to see it, we can find one. We can't get one to work right now, but we can in the summertime. We can do it and we can put smoke in front of it. And I'll show you exactly what the smoke's going to do because we run those tests a lot. So Jeremy kind of got pinned down. He didn't like, he knew it was coming, but he didn't much care for me kind of destroying the fire. It's a fire hazard. It's a fire spread hazard and so forth. So he kind of jumped onto, well, we need 3 feet to give us clearance to get through there. There isn't anything like that in any code that says that. But the building department said, yeah, 3 feet's what's important. You need to have, under the building code, you need to have 36 inches at an exit door. An exit door has to be 36 inches wide so you can get out. So you're going to get in the house, you have 36 feet, you're going to go, be a fireman, go in there, you need 36 inches, and you're going to go around the house. You need to be able to get 36 inches around there. Except there's something that's predictable. Do you know that there is one room in a house that is predictable where a fireman will more likely than any place else to have to go in and rescue someone? Remember, when they're going in to rescue them, it's in a house that's filled with smoke. You can't see your hand in front of your face. You're down on the floor crawling along to get underneath everything. What room do you suppose you have to be going into? Child's bedroom. That is the most likely room that a firefighter will have to go into in the course of a fire. Okay, so what's the difference there? What's the code for rooms door openings in Michigan in residential units? 24 inches. Doesn't need to be 36, it needs to be 24. In fact, if the room is really small, it can be smaller than that, but typical bedroom has got to be 24 inches. So 24 inches now, you could hang your head on that and say, 24 inches, we ought to have 24 inches because we know firefighters with the backpacks on, crawling and so forth can get through there. Otherwise, residential codes wouldn't allow doors to be that narrow. That's pretty simple. Okay. So I know at the last meeting, a lot of you were rather hung up with. Jeremy said that Jeremy Connell, the Assistant Director of Public Safety, who also serves as kind of the fire chief, said that they really thought they needed 36 inches. So I went and talked to he and Steve Newbecker. I want to talk to both of them at the same time. And we sat over in Steve's office over here and I made my case why I didn't think that was right. And I said, what do you think? And they said, we're going to think about it. We'll get back to you. It's okay, that's fine. I'll take as long as you want. Think whatever you want. I'll be looking forward to your arguments. And they released an email that was in your packet that says, for clarification, because he says, well, I was misunderstood. I don't really, we don't really need 3 feet. For clarification, the fire department does not require a 3-foot setback for mechanical equipment. That argument's dead right there. You don't need that. They don't need it. He said he doesn't need it. It's not found in the fire code adopted by the city, and I'll add to that, or any other fire code that I can find. So the setback, whatever it is determined by the planning and the zoning department. Okay, so that one's kind of dead also. Now, let's look at the practicality of all this. I felt something else to you.
I could read those out for you.
There are two of them.
That's impossible to study if you don't get it before leaving.
A bunch of them together, but that would be a set.
Thank you.
Okay. You've been there, Randy. You know what it is. All right. Oops. Thank you. Here's a house under construction. Nice house.
Where is this at, please?
Lions Park Drive, I think.
I'm sorry, 910 Lions Park Drive,
912 Lions Park Drive.
912 Lions Park Drive. Thank you.
Yep. And it's a house under construction, very nice house. And it is interesting to see what's there because we have on the side of the house a little different air conditioner unit than you're used to seeing, which you might look at and say, that looks like a mini split. Well, it does, but it's not. That's actually what's called a suitcase condenser. And that's just a different kind of condenser. And it is made to be very narrow and it vents horizontally. In other words, most of them vent right at the top. This one vents out the side. And nothing wrong with it. It's a very nice installation that's there. Looks very nice. I don't see any problem with it. If you look at in the first page, it has 4 photographs on it. You kind of get a little view through there. And there's an arrow that points to where it's at because it's kind of in the shadow. It's a little hard to see. And then you can see a couple pictures that shows what it looks like mounted against the wall there. Nice installation, you know. It is 8 feet between the exterior walls of one house and the house next to it. I'm not sure why, because that's less than it theoretically, at least I think it should be. They should be 10 feet, but I don't have any problem with that. I don't have any problem with that at all. My house and my neighbor's house are 6 feet apart. And they've been that way for 30 years, and we don't have any problem with that. Okay, so there is down at the bottom left-hand corner, there's a line down there. And I don't know what, that line is just one I put in because I can't tell where the property line is. But presumably, the one on the left should be 5 feet from it, and the one on the left maybe maybe it's only 3 feet, although it didn't predate our ordinance because they're both pretty new. But let's say it's 5 feet across. So if we look at this air conditioner and the second page then with only 2 pictures on it, there are 2 pictures there that shows a tape measure in it. And if I were to tell you, and you can look at it kind of close, I gave you a close up there, looking across the front of it, and it looks like it's 26 inches from the house. Now, if it's the 5 feet that are required for clearance, assuming he has, a suitable exterior surface or a 1 hour fire protection on it, then should be 5 feet. That then, we can do the math. 3 feet is 36 inches. 26 inches is 2 inches too close to the lot line. Do you see a problem with that?
Yeah.
Is that a no or yes?
I'm just asking, whose house is this and who are we talking about? Do they even know that we're talking about their house and their property and their construction? I'm just, and the line, we don't actually know where the property line is?
I don't know what the property line is.
So what is the?
There is a
how
property
will
line there
this-
someplace.
How
We're
will
gonna
this help us if we don't know where that line is? That was
That's-
what I was trying to figure out.
It could be 8 feet away and the property on the right-hand side is way too close, or it could be 7 feet or 6 feet or 5 feet. I don't really know where the property line is.
So I
What
guess how
I'm
do we
saying-
use it as an example if we don't know whether it's an issue or not? That's where I was going with that.
Are you being deliberately obtuse or do I need to explain it?
Oh, no, I'm never deliberately obtuse, Jack.
Couldn't imagine.
And I love to hear you explain. I think we afforded you quite an opportunity here to explain. So please go right ahead. I'm just,
It illustrates that there is a line down there someplace between those two properties, and I don't know where it is. And you don't either.
did you try to find out? I'm just curious.
No. Would it make a
Could you-
difference? Would it make
See,
a difference?
Let me, yeah. Let's just, if somebody wanted to find out where the property line was, you could actually find that out, correct?
If there's a surveying file.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
Okay,
Go
but
ahead.
let's assume that it's 5 feet, which is what it should be. Which means the house on the right is 3 feet, and which is too close, but let's assume that it's 5 feet from the house on the left. If it is, then the air conditioner, we can tell, is 2 inches too close to the 3-foot setback. And if it is, can anybody here tell me anything about that that causes a problem to them? Because I don't see that there is a problem. I think it's a nice installation. And if it's 2 inches too close, I don't really care. And I don't think anybody else does. Except maybe the building department. Okay, you don't like that, so let's move on. So if we move to packet page 26. And says that we can replace one on, under C, under non-conforming mechanical equipment. We can repair it or maintain it. It's not, if it's non-conforming because it's less than 3 feet from the interior side lot line or rear lot line. Replacement of mechanical equipment may be performed on mechanical equipment that is non-conforming because it is located less than 3 feet from the road, if it meets these conditions. If the air conditioning unit is a heat pump, an air conditioning unit, or a mini split, which is kind of redundant, it's both of those two. It does not prevent free ingress or egress from a building. We already have codes that prevent that. And any replacement equipment is no closer to the lot line than that which is being replaced. And it's gonna be. They're gonna be 120 to 150% larger. And so if it's 3 feet, if it's less than 3 feet now, it's gonna be a little even less than 3 feet. Maybe 3 or 4 inches more, less than it's supposed to be. And that says essentially, we said you couldn't put this, you couldn't replace it there, and now you can't. And that's exactly what we're telling people here. You know, we're not going to allow you to do that. So we go down a little bit farther and we get into something that, you know, one of the things that I have kind of talked to our city officials here about is building a little bit of flexibility into the ordinances, which is hard to do because if you don't have flexibility, then you have somebody, a building inspector or whoever can say, you are a 1/4 of an inch too close to this line, you're going to have to change it. We have somebody down in my neighborhood whose stairs are supposed to be so many inches high. That's what, they can't be higher than that. It was a 1/4 of an inch higher. And one of our building inspectors insisted that they take it out. And the owner, who has some money, said, see you in court, you know, if you really want to do that, because it's going to cost about $20,000 to take that out of a house that is finished. You know. And there's a famous quote that says there's nothing so uncommon as common sense. And do you know who is widely attributed as having said that and what they have said it about? You ever heard of an architect by the name of Frank Lloyd Wright? I don't think he really is the one that said it originally, but he is widely attributed to saying that. And he's also widely attributed in saying it about building inspectors, because a lot of times we don't lose a lot of common sense, and that's certainly the case. So I would hope that you absolutely back off and say the 3-foot thing this doesn't, we don't need it. There's no purpose. It didn't serve any purpose in the 10 years that we used it, we experimented with it. There's no code that you can cite that says, hey, it's got to be 36 inches or you can't do it. But if you got to have a number, why don't you pick 2 feet? Because that's going to allow enough for most air conditioning units now that are being replaced to fit in there. How long it will, I don't know. But if the firemen can't get through there in 2 feet opening that's left for them, they need to go on a diet. So I hope you will consider that when you decide whatever you're going to do with this ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Sanderson. Is there anybody else that would like to be heard? Anybody else that would like to be recognized? Close the public hearing. Ladies and gentlemen, what is your pleasure? Questions for staff? Questions for just general discussion?
I have a question.
Right ahead.
The house that we have this picture of. It was done obviously with a permit, so it's allowed.
That
But-
house is still under construction, so it had no final permits have been issued. They do have to provide on the site plan at time of permitting where the mechanical equipment is going.
Okay, so this has not technically been approved.
Correct.
Ah, thank you.
My questions.
I have a question. on-
Mr. Burzak, Ms. Burzak.
So in regard to this home, the fact that there's 8 foot between the properties, is that to the eave or to the building wall?
I think in the one picture on the page before of them, I think you can see the eaves that are up there. They extend slightly down the wall.
So this is, must have been- so is the 8 feet, I can't tell from the picture, but it's farther than that.
Purposely.
That, do you think when you took the measurement, did you measure wall to wall?
It's bigger wall.
Okay, so it's 8 feet wall to wall.
Yep.
So would these properties have had to obtain a CBA approval to the
I believe they did.
both properties?
I don't know. I don't know. I think the one under construction certainly did.
Okay,
And all got it for the driveway, they only got it. I don't think it was a side yard, though, was that bad?
I can't recall.
I think it was just, the house across the street had a variance for the detached garage. We did them the same thing. I think this one only needed a variance for, they got a curb cut on the street rather than using the alley.
Other questions or comments?
I have another comment.
Ms. Burzak.
Working in shop, we will say the same thing. There are set limits for a reason. So if something's a 1/4 inch off, I've personally been on site where we were told to move a ADA fountain because it was a 1/4 inch higher than the allowance. There has to be a limit. That's why you have these requirements. And so how do you then determine that, oh, it's a 1/4 inch off, oh, it's an inch off, oh, it's 6% instead of 5%? So where do you draw the line? There has to be, a set of standards that you meet, and if you exceed them, just like the steps, if the step, a residential step can be 8 inches and it's 8 1/4, you haven't met the requirements. And so I totally disagree with that, because it shouldn't be on a case-by-case basis that we take federal laws and building codes and adjust them to the. That's my opinion.
All right, thank you, Ms. Burzak. Other questions or comments?
I'm
Mr.
just
Miller.
recognizing the email, that communication that we got, that public safety has a position that adequate space should be available for emergency operations and access. Whether that can be clearly defined, or whether that can be attributed to something written down somewhere isn't included, but I think the opinion of the Public Safety Department is worth considering.
I have another.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Ms. Burzak.
So in regard to non-conforming, the discussion about that, if you want to put your unit back in and you have to wait 2 months for the ZBA. If we allow the non-conforming unit to go back in, and you mentioned that there are different constructible types of air conditioning units, some could be more tower-like. Kind of the example you showed in your photos. Is the hangup with the non-conforming that it says that it can be no closer to the property line? And, is there flexibility, if it's already non-conforming and, no closer to the property line than it already is, it could already be 2 feet or less to the property line. So the statement that it's no closer than it already is could already hinder public safety, or anyone else from passing by it. Because it's no closer than it already is. Well, if it's non-conforming, it could end up being 6 inches away. So I guess I'm trying to understand how we can further accommodate that if we're already in agreement that non-conforming, we're going to allow it to be put back where it is, as long as it's no closer to the property line than it already is. That doesn't mean it's 3 feet away. It means it's whatever it already is, and many of them are closer than 3 feet away. I'm trying to be flexible and accommodating, but there's, that then I think requires a ZBA appearance, and then, unfortunately, if, it is in the summer months, it's unfortunate, but not knowing what that limit or minimum already is can't change the wording, because you could end up then saying no closer than it already is, and it's 1 foot away, and now we're gonna allow it to be on the property line. So I don't know how else we can accommodate that. I think as far as non-conforming, we're all in agreement that it's a hardship for people that have to move them and to allow them, but a new construction should follow the guidelines based on the needs of public safety, requesting the space for, access. That's just my opinion.
Thank you, Ms. Burzak. Any other public hearing is closed. Is there anything further from commissioners? Let's give our commissioners an opportunity to be heard.
So just in looking at these examples and not knowing, the full story, I can, if I made assumptions that that was a 5-foot setback, my opinion is those would be too close. That's how I feel on the topic. I also consider that this may present other options. I don't know much of anything about these so-called suitcase condensing units. Maybe that's an option for a homeowner that is considering replacing their unit and is struggling with maybe the size of a different unit. So maybe there's options. This looks like that there's possibly options available. But regardless, my prior position remains the same, that we don't change the ordinance, that 5-foot or 7-foot setbacks should allow for adequate placement of an air conditioning unit.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Other questions or comments or discussion? And ladies and gentlemen, then what is your pleasure?
I have another comment.
Mr. Trevor.
I think we have many, many things in our ordinance that could block our 3 feet of access. Fences, shrubs, planter walls. Any number of things in our ordinance could obstruct access to the rear yard or anything else. So I think Jack brings up a number of interesting points, and I concur that, is this really required?
Thank you. Go back to what is your pleasure? Do we have a motion? I hear none.
So I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
So if we do nothing, we still have a problem with people that have non-conforming condenser units who are
Mhm.
being required to move them. That's very expensive. We have new language that addresses that and addresses many of the concerns. But now we have new things that have been brought up that perhaps still need to be considered. With respect to this new construction, if they put a fence in there, then it would be obstructed. If it was left alone, certainly I wouldn't think there's any issue with access for maintenance or for safety issues. So the building plans were approved as to where these buildings were relative to one another. So that setback has already been established as to what that is. Where the mechanicals are going, if with our current with our current regulations, these would not be in compliance and would have to be moved. Is that accurate? Okay, so now wherever this was designed from the perspective of efficiency and where they laid out, if this is, I'm assuming it's not ductless, these are ductless or? Those are not ductless units at all. Okay, so the whole system is predicated on where these things sit in terms of its efficiency. So now they're gonna have to move that. And I think, and now I guess the builder should have thought of that before they put this in, but I don't see where there is an issue with respect to where they are. So while I think we need to address the non-conforming issues, what I have concern with is now we're not addressing, I guess it's a small part of the population where the buildings are very close together. And it may make more sense for these condenser units to be in those side lots as opposed to being told to go all the way to the back or to the front, to the back, because these are very long and narrow lots too, which makes it increasingly less efficient as well. So my concern is the way that I think we still need to address some issues, and I'm not qualified to do that. So I think like I said, while we address the non-conforming issues, I think we have some other things that Jack has brought up that I think we need to address.
All right, thank you. Well. Yes, Kristen.
I did get, I texted downstairs for someone to send me drawings, so this house at 512, the drawings show that were approved, that the eave is, the foundation is 5 feet 4.5 inches from the lot line. The existing house must have gotten a variance, I don't know how it got there, so at the dimension shown, it would comply because the wall is set back more than 5 feet. So you have an extra few inches there for it. So that equipment is compliant. They showed the eave dimension, they showed the foundation dimension between the two buildings, or to the lot line, excuse me. And it does appear they're putting in a fence. The electrical and the gas panels will be open to the public, or, oh, well, they're not. That's, but the 2 pieces of equipment are showing 3 feet 6 inches from the sideline line.
And they're gonna add a fence in between these two houses, is that what you said?
Yeah.
And so does that mean that the house immediately to the north probably had a variance to be within
3 feet.
3 feet of or 2 feet from lot line to E?
Yeah, I don't know what that variance was. Going back to find it.
And that's not unusual from the previous ordinance.
Be 2 feet from lot line to house,
No, 3.
3 feet.
3 feet. Well, E though, if you take the 5.
Right, I
if
mean-
they're 8 foot apart.
Yeah, under the previous ordinance, that would not be unusual.
Because if you're going, Jack said that the 8 foot is wall to wall,
Right.
and the eaves are usually a foot wider, and our ordinance has always gone from eave to eave.
Mhm.
So that means there would have been, if this house is 5 foot away from the eve line,
Inspection.
then if, you know, you take 2 feet off, that means the other house was 1 foot. So the eve was allowed to be 1 foot away from the lot line.
Mhm.
But that wouldn't have been per our previous ordinance. That would have been per a ZBA.
Correct.
Okay, that's
Correct.
what I wanted to make. I thought.
Yeah, under the previous ordinance, there were a lot of variances
Okay, I didn't catch that.
less than 5 feet.
So probably a 1 foot or whatever. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, what is your pleasure?
So my comment is that this house, you said this house did present a problem in your eyes. Well, now it is clear though that this house has met all of the criteria
Yes.
of the 3B.
Yep.
And so that even to me further establishes, you know, why this house was able to make that work within they built their house a little narrower so that they could accommodate the setback requirement for the mechanical.
And the information was ascertainable.
And the information was ascertainable, so for us to assume they didn't meet the criteria, they have, and so I feel that, we can see example in new construction that, you know, given the limitations of what is desired, it can be achieved. It's a lovely house and it's achieved in that narrow space. And so I don't see any reason why, you know, we need to make the under new construction any less than what the request was.
For me, a problem was sent to us and identified, and we spent months going over various points of view. I don't subscribe to what I call the Wild West approach, so much flexibility that we have no rules. Because I don't think I agree with Ms. Bursack on that. I think there needs to be rules, and there's always going to be somebody who's just this side of the rule and on the other side of the rule, and we deal with that all the time. We deal with line drawing all the time. It's what people who write ordinances do. It's what people who write statutes do. So I'm not uncomfortable with that at all. Where you draw the line, that's a process. We have spent months, we've gathered information, we have listened to lots of people and discussed it, and some compromising, some not compromising, some bits and pieces from various sources. So I think, you know, where we're at now is, do we go forward in the manner in which proposed? Do we change anything? Do we do nothing? All of those are valid options, but I think the applicant, which has to be the city, is entitled to vote somehow, a thumbs up, thumbs down, or somewhere in between. And in clear direction from us. Seems to me that much of what we were asked to tackle, we did. Reasonable minds can and do differ on some of these issues. That's what makes a good horse race, okay? I might think there might be more to public safety, to keeping things open and not adding to a list of possible things that block. Why would we add anything? Okay, public safety means more than just fire. Public safety means more than just fire. And so I go back to that. I like to rely on factual things. That's why I don't get dissuaded by things and shiny objects until we know for a fact what our facts are. So I think that's important too. I think, you know, staff, who I have a higher opinion of, I think, than maybe some, but they've asked for some guidance and then they've identified a need. And I think we've done well to come up with something that addresses what comes up. Doesn't mean everybody's going to agree on 100% of all of it, nor required to. It's just a question of, let's give them some direction. If this is what this body wants to recommend out to the city commission, so be it. If it want to tweak it, do something different, that's perfectly fine as well. Or if we don't want to do anything, then the answer is no, then the answer is no. And that's what can go back to the city commission. Although I did think it started up there at the city commission, didn't it?
It did start very.
Yeah, so, but somebody else can deal with that particular city commissioner and it won't be us. I just think we should give staff some direction. on what, if anything, we want to do.
Just one last comment. In light of the information that this is in compliance, my views are different with respect to what we need to do here. I'm ready to move forward and to approve the wording as it is. I think we've done enough work on it.
I would suggest that we take Jack's guidance and we add better language to mini splits.
Do you have being in the area as well? Mini splits clearly a term of art that people in your area understand. But do you have,
Jack, what was your term?
Douglas.
Douglas.
You can put,
Mini split in parentheses so that,
that's.
yes, I would suggest that that language get adjusted. Other than that, the item C, the mechanical equipment, blah, 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 I can certainly live with that. And for me, it's as simple as we eliminate under the non-conforming, eliminate number 3.
Which page is that, Sean?
Packet page 26.
So does that mean then they can put it right on the property line?
Sure, you can put your fence right on the property line. I have no problem with that.
Quick question with that, because when Jeff was talking, a lot of that was about air conditioning units, mechanical equipment encompasses more than that.
Correct, but I think we clean that up. There's some place where it can't be emitting. Yes, thinking of generators. Yeah, I think we cleaned that up with,
Yeah, that's on number 1, right? Is an air conditioning unit, heat pump, mini split, and, right, isn't that on the number 1 right above the 3?
Correct.
Yeah.
yeah, and
to allow-
there's language I can't Put my
we-
finger
in
right
other-
on it
in
where-
other spots,
Yeah,
yes.
I
where it
agree.
is about exhaust and things like that.
That would all be okay on the property line. I'm not mechanical at all, so I'm asking it just for clarification, because a lot of that was.
Yeah, I mean, since we can put, there's other obstructions in our ordinance you can put there. I don't have a problem with my HVAC unit being that obstruction.
The only issue I would raise is if, let's just say, most houses have the driveway in front, but there are a few that have the driveway that go around and their driveway is in the back. And if the next door neighbor is allowed to put the unit on the property line, it gives you no opportunity, if your driveway is on your property line, to have any form of visible screening. I'm not comfortable with having any equipment that I have to look at all the time right on the property line that I'm not able to somehow visibly screen. And there will be conditions where your driveway is that close. So, I was comfortable with saying no closer or even allowing them, I would be comfortable changing the language to say closer, but no closer than 1 foot from the lot line. I would be comfortable with that, but not comfortable with having the unit right on the lot line.
I would be very uncomfortable with the lot line. You know, the fence between, you know, a fence is inert.
Yes,
Right, a piece of mechanical equipment is active.
yes.
So I do see kind of a difference between that.
So I would, feel that saying that we could allow, since the equipment is, 120% larger or so, we could say something to the effect that, allowed to be closer, to the lot line than it currently is, but no closer than 1 foot. Or somehow
thinking-
wording it in a way that sounds more.
Exactly along that line, because it appears to me that we've been able to figure out with new construction where these appliances can go. The problem that I keep hearing is existing properties and having to replace.
Yeah.
If we take into account this change of 20%, 25% sizing in the units themselves, could we not just take that percentage and subtract that from the distance of the house and come up with something that can help the people that are in the situation of possibly having to replace?
Aye.
Okay, so when we were drafting the language in, the non-conforming section, we did talk a little about that staff internally. And we were thinking, well, maybe the bulk, you know, the height, the depth, the width, multiply that together and you get a number and that's what you get. But we decided that would be pretty cumbersome to keep doing or enforcing. It probably wasn't the full intent. And so that's why we ended up with just closer. Because we know the equipment's getting bigger and when we start playing with numbers, it wasn't working out for us.
I'm comfortable with how it's currently worded, but I'm certainly not comfortable having it on the property line for the things that were mentioned. I agree with those two things. And if it's bigger, then it's just getting closer to the house. It's just not getting closer to the lot line, right? I mean, if the unit is a larger unit, the unit is just going to be closer to the house.
Not necessarily. I mean, if your existing unit is manufacturer requires 6 inches clear of the house, the new unit chances are require 6 inches new of the house. So all of the bigger equipment is moving towards the property line.
So you would be required to do like a two-case unit or something. Maybe. I'm kind of in the middle. I would allow it to get larger as long as it's not on the property line. And I don't think we should do a mathematical for every property, but say a minimum distance. Just to make it easier.
Two options. Put it in form of a motion now, thumbs up, thumbs down in terms of with whatever modifications people wish to propose, or none. Or I guess bring it back one more time. No further public hearing, but incorporate some of this. That's the only other thing that I can think of. Because we don't have to do another public hearing, correct? There will not be another public hearing on that, so.
I really have no stomach for bringing it back again. I agree.
I'm perfectly content. So if somebody has a motion, that's why I say, other than not letting it die for lack of a motion, which I don't think we should do that to any applicant. Someone wants to.
Well, it sounds like there's, there's opinions. You know, Mr. Ebert is comfortable with at the lot line. Ms. Burzak wants a little more margin. Tony wants, you like it as is?
Leave it as it is.
Did you have any wiggle room on expanding? Right, further, a replacement unit further getting close?
Well, then we get into you know, we have a standard, we have a specific number. And if we have a fudge number on it, then, you know, we kind of defeat the purpose. So being that it is not something I'm involved with on a daily basis, I have to defer to some of the experts. Like, Mr. Ebert brings up the fact that it may be that you have to be closer in order to comply with the installation instruction. I don't know, all these little nuances. Are we gonna solve it? I don't know. I think we've done a really good job at solving a problem that I've heard a lot of neighbors, you know, have to deal with. So I'm ready to approve it the way it is.
Would you care to put that in the form of a motion?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. York, if you would, please.
All right, I move to recommend the approval of the proposed amendment to Article 2, Section 2.3, definitions, Article 3, Section 3.9.3.c, and Article 21, Section 21.7C to define the term mechanical equipment and establish regulations to allow replacement of specific non-conforming equipment when certain conditions are met in the zoning ordinance of the city of St. Joseph, Michigan, based on the factors set forth under section 22.3 of the zoning ordinance.
All right, I have a motion from Mr. Yurk. Mr. Yurk, before I seek support for your motion, was it your intent to include the definitional change only of mini split alluded to earlier?
I think that's appropriate to include that.
Okay,
Yes.
so I have the
clarification.
motion with
Yes.
that clarification. Do I have support for Mr. Yurk's motion? Chair will support the motion only to allow for the vote. Okay, your applicant deserves a vote. Okay, thumbs up, said. All
Thank you.
right, now, is there discussion on the motion? Any further discussion on the motion?
My discussion is that I'm concerned that, we've already said that the units need to be larger. And we're trying to accommodate non-conforming. And if they have to be larger and they're already the minimum distance from the building, we haven't fixed anything if we approve this motion. And so I'm going to reluctantly ask if you would want to modify your motion to allow a minimum additional closeness to the lot line, but not on the lot line. Your choice. You're not comfortable with it.
I am willing to consider that, but I think we need specific language rather than just being a foot.
So if we said specific language that any replaced equipment can be closer to the lot line than the equipment being replaced. However, no equipment shall be allowed to be in less than 1 foot of the lot line. Are you comfortable with that?
I think you need to clarify that further, I think, because that would allow me to put it up to a foot no matter what. And what we're looking to do is not change where they are unless they have to.
So, okay. The expansion of the existing equipment in the same relationship to the existing may extend outward toward the lot line to provide for a larger percentage of equipment for the SEER. However, it cannot extend to the point of being within 12 inches or 1 foot of the lot line. Is that, or you?
I understand the intent, but I think we need better language than that. I think we need to address the fact that the units are significantly larger, the ones that are being replaced with. And so while you can put it in the same place, can you put it in the same place? If now I've got to move it somewhere. So if my restriction is I can't have it any closer to the lot line than I am currently, then it's got to go towards the building somehow. And if that creates a situation where it's no longer in compliance with the way that the manufacturer wants it, then we have a problem.
Well, so
I don't know how to address that.
I guess we're trying to make non-conforming, realizing what Mr. Sanderson said, that they're all larger. We're trying to give non-conforming a little
correct.
more wiggle room so that we're not saying that because why do we even go here with all this discussion if we're not trying to accommodate non-conforming and not make every unit have to be moved to the backyard? And so I think, if we can come up with a good way of wording it, that the equipment no closer to the lot line than the equipment being replaced may not allow for
Understood.
that compliance. And we're not gonna accommodate everyone, unfortunately. If you're already 12 inches from your lot line and you can't go back further, then you'll have to move it. So it's kind of we're trying to wiggle room and accommodate more than what we previously had with just the 3 foot. So,
Can we vote on something without specific language? I mean, we're gonna,
no.
I
so,
don't recommend it.
okay, so,
You'll be surprised what you get when you do
okay,
that.
so we,
Yeah, no.
Yeah, no, you really
No,
shouldn't.
so I'm just trying to make it
So-
so that I don't vote.
So
no.
what is the risk if number 3 is any replacement equipment is no closer than 1 foot to the lot line?
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, could you amend?
Would you be willing to amend your motion?
I am willing to amend my motion to include the modification to
Packet page 26.
page. To section 21.7 dot 8 last paragraph. With the modification that the distance between the newly installed unit and the lot line be no greater than 1 foot.
No, less.
No
Less
less
than 1
than.
foot.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Yes.
Okay,
I had the support for the motion, and I'm willing to amend my support for the motion to accommodate that modification. So that gives us a motion with valid support before this body. Is there any further discussion on the motion?
I just want to be clear. Your motion includes, the motion included the approval of the recommendation. It includes the clarification of the ductless heat
Yes.
pump. And it includes modifying that the equipment is no closer than 1 foot, replacement equipment is no closer than 1 foot from the lot line.
Yes.
Thank you.
Staff have that? So we're all on the same page? Because this is the one that's gonna go up. So let's make sure we got you got that language, because we're flying a lot of suggestions around.
I think Kathy has a question.
I'm
on the
coming
motion.
back. I'm
Sorry.
coming back to it. I just want to get this part right.
Yes, thank you.
Ms. Burzak.
clarification.
Yeah.
For a few of us. The 12-inch is only for non-conforming.
Yes.
That's clarification, not new.
Yes.
That's better.
Yes, just clarify. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, clerk may call the roll.
Mr. Ulrich,
Yes.
Mr. Tex,
Yes.
Ms. Porter,
Yes.
Mr. Hartzell.
Yes.
Ms. Burzak.
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
No,
Ms. Rice,
Yes.
Mr. Eber.
No.
Motion is approved.
And this will be to the city commission on what tentatively?
Possibly on the 26th. No,
I'm sure you'll get word, when you know for sure, you'll get word to Mr. Sanderson, of course. All right, next item on the agenda. 2024 Planning Commission Annual Report. Wow, we were busy. Whew. I am telling you. It always amazes me when you start putting all this together. It's just very impressive, but I think, Kristen, you're just looking for approval tonight or just additional input, anything that might need to be modified, changed, added?
but it's okay. We can approve it tonight, or if it's a minor change, we can approve it with that change. But
Anybody find anything that was left out or?
I find it hard to believe I had 100% attendance.
We are all very well mindful
Yeah.
of that. We count on you being here. Yeah, the attendance is great.
we would have noticed.
This body is wonderful about that. I'm not hearing anybody left out of training or anything they thought of.
No. We're busy.
Do indeed. Do we have a motion then to adopt this as our 2024 Planning Commission Annual Report?
I'll make a motion to adopt the 2024 Planning Commission Annual Report as presented.
All right, thank you, Ms. Burzak. I have a motion by Ms. Burzak. Do I have support for her motion? Ms. Rice supports her motion. Is there further discussion on the motion? Do we need a voice, can we do a voice vote? All right, any other further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting the motion and adopting the 2024 Planning Commission Annual Report for submission, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, thank you. Last item on the agenda, it's gonna get the short shrift, I'm sorry, I'm afraid. But,
Yeah.
and I'll do that out of deference to my planning commission, fellow planning commissioners who worked hard. But I do have a question, what did we miss because of the technical software package?
what?
Well, according to the last item we got in parking, due to technical issues with the software package, please see attachments. What did,
Like, I was trying to get like to page 46. On page 45, and it wouldn't.
okay. I was trying to,
Software package, but what happened, it's about 6 months out and they're not really servicing. What as much as they.
okay. All right, I just wanted to make sure we weren't, I missed something on the. All right. Are there any other, one last comment, I'm gonna make it a minute momentarily, but I want to get everybody else in an opportunity. Other questions or comments or items? What are we looking at March?
The deadline is Monday and we might have, but I need to get back to someone about a sign, so we might have a sign modification for a long.
Where's that located?
It
You
is
can start driving by.
Yoga Life, where, Cleveland and. Lake-
Roxy's.
Oh,
Roxy.
Oh, Roxy.
Oh.
She did the concept and she wants the Yoga Life sign on the two-story part above the windows, the second floor windows.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. Right now, that's appearing to be perhaps the only,
What?
that appears to be perhaps the only citizen business
Yeah,
might be.
that's- yeah, I think so.
So we would have time to dig into parking? Okay. Other questions for staff or suggestions?
Can I ask a question
Mr.
regarding,
Miller, you, of course. you may.
regarding, I just, there was something, if I can find the page. I saw, and I didn't specifically mark the page, I thought I saw somewhere where it was being considered, okay, so on packet page 46, after residential dwellings, there's words, past discussions led to a conclusion that decreasing required parking in the downtown from 1.5 to 1 would be appropriate. Were those planning commission discussions?
That was back probably right after you went off the board.
Okay,
All right.
all right, so just a few years ago. And that was within the planning commission.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I did do some more research, so you can see
Okay.
what other downtowns are doing.
Right.
Thank you.
Anything else for staff? Then before I entertain a motion to adjourn, I just want to lay something out there for the record. In the course of these last few months, working on some of these issues, we've worked hard and we haven't always agreed and there's been discord and all that kind of good stuff. I have felt on occasion that I just felt there were perhaps some comments directed toward our staff that were not warranted. I want to reemphasize that I am week by week and month by month, at 35 plus 49 years of doing this or whatever, but never been pretty much anything less than impressed with the work that staff overall provides for us. And I want them to know that. Don't say it often enough, because yep, we'll find a mistake here and there, and we'll hone right in on it. You better believe it. We'll send you out and measure it again. But that's okay. That's their job, and that's what they do in their professionals. So I want to reemphasize my support for them, and I think I speak for most everybody up here. We appreciate the hard work that you do. Do we get it right 100% of the time, all the time? No. But do we get it right most of the time? Yes. And anything to the contrary, I find very disconcerting. And I want to just nip that right now. So, and I'm sure Trudy will be joining us at the next meeting. I can't wait I'll fill her in, and you can tell her what I said in the minutes. We'll say it as well. But I want them to reinforce my beliefs on that, and we thank them. Okay? And we say we're not perfect, but boy, you crank out a lot of work for us, and there are many, many days you make us look really good. So we thank you for that. Having said that, is there a motion anyone would like to make?
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Why, thank you, Mr. Miller. I have a motion for adjournment. Do I have support for Mr. Miller's motion? I
I'll support.
stand out of the way. Ms. Porter, she gets that one. Any discussion on their motion? There better not be. I hear none, see none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign. Thank you all, ladies and gentlemen. We're adjourned. We will see you in March.
Be at work in March.
Work or?
Work. No, yeah, I'll be at work.
Actually, based on.